My name is Kayla Cherry, and I talk about films and all the things going on within them. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the 1995 cult classic Party Girl, directed by Daisy von Schuler-Meyer. The first film to premiere on the internet, Party Girl is an ode to the lifestyles of young people in the 90s. However, the film is having a resurgence with Gen Z 30 years after its release. Film and fashion accounts alike on social media are reposting photos of the effortlessly stylish Mary, played by indie darling Parker Posey, as she learns how to balance both having an active social nightlife and a much less glamorous day job. There is literally something about Mary that has kept audiences attracted to her for decades. And that something is her stark individuality, her involvement with her community, and her constant curiosity surrounding her idea of herself. For young adults in 2025, Mary's life is in many ways aspirational. Lots of friends, great clothes, and no cell phones in sight. Party Girl's representation of what Gen Z craves. Genuine, person-to-person connectivity, coupled with a strong sense of self. But why does Gen Z want these things so badly? And how does Party Girl work as a form of wish fulfillment for these desires? Party Girl follows the story of Mary, a prototypical wild child with a love of drinking, drugging, and dancing the night away. The film opens with her, bottle in one hand, cash in the other, with a joint sticking out of her mouth as she is swiftly arrested for throwing an illegal warehouse party. Needing to sustain herself, Mary seeks out her godmother Judy, who reluctantly gives her a job as a librarian. Party Girl, at its core, is a coming-of-age story for people in their early 20s, as Mary must, as Polyester Zine writes, face the party you wish you were never invited to, becoming a functioning member of society. And this is not easy for Mary. Towards her path to self-fulfillment, she must deal with her godmother's lack of confidence in her ability to be a librarian, missteps with her crush, Mustafa, an adorable street falafel vendor, and maintaining the strong community she has built through being a party girl. The film does not have Mary choose one over the other, though. In Party Girl, Mary is allowed to be all of who she is. She is not forced to choose between nightlife and work. Both are able to coexist within her life. This permission the film grants to Mary, and moreover the audience, to be multifaceted, is what makes Party Girl such an aspirational piece of cinema for young people to look up to, fantasize about, and even feel nostalgic for, even if many of the film's viewers today were born well after Party Girl's initial release. It is no secret that Gen Z is facing a loneliness epidemic. Despite being more connected than ever before, with the widespread use of smartphones, social media, and the internet, in 2023, 1 in 4 members of Gen Z reported that they always or often felt lonely over the past 12 months. This may seem surprising at first, but with the knowledge that 60% of Gen Z also reported feeling that their lives were heavily impacted by the pandemic, things start to become more clear. With lockdowns and stay-at-home orders in place globally to protect from the spread of the COVID-19 virus, many members of Gen Z had the formative years of their adolescence and early adulthood significantly altered from the traditional structure of youth before. With Zoom school, no proms, and online graduations, Gen Z lost years of prominent social interaction to being isolated at home, with nothing but a screen connecting them to their peers. Even my 21st birthday happened in the beginning of 2021, when vaccines just started to be distributed in the US. Did I get to go to a bar or a club or throw a wild party? No. I just bought a couple bottles and drank with some friends in their backyard. It was a far cry from the social connectivity fostered by just a few generations before us. Gen X, as Party Girl depicts, seem to be much more social than Gen Z. Recalling their early teen years, 60% of Gen Xers report that they spent most of their free time with their friends as teenagers, compared to Gen Z, who only reported spending some of their time with their friends. One way to spend time with your friends, especially when you get into your 20s, is at a club. And in the late 80s to mid-90s, there was a group of young people in New York who did just that. Called club kids, This diverse group of individuals from all different backgrounds and life experiences were brought together by the seedy underground of New York City warehouses and dance halls. As Richard Hudson Miles writes in the article Angels in Ecstasy, the story of New York's club kids, their club nights were the model of inclusivity, with goths, gays, punks, yuppies, celebrities, and street hustlers all cavorting in unison. Simultaneously, the Club Kids project was social, political, and artistic. Not only did Club Kids performatively transform themselves into otherworldly creatures, rejecting the labels and the insults of mainstream society in the process, they also turned the grimy, forgotten, urban spaces they inhabited into living, breathing works of participatory performance art. Party Girl stands as one of the monuments to the Club Kids, a scene that ended the same year the film was released with the murder of Club Kid Angel Melendez by promoter and ringleader of the group Michael Aulig. Although the ending to the New York Club Kids was grim, the film takes a look at the best parts of the culture, such as the fashion, the camaraderie amongst different races, genders, and sexualities, and a love of underground music. It is easy to feel like this sort of community is hard to find today, or maybe even feel non-existent. Although Party Girl is a peek into a life in which some ways we, Gen Z, will never experience, it does not mean there's nothing in common between the youth cultures of the 90s and of today. The biggest similarity is the level of diversity Gen Z engages with on a daily basis. This, as the American Survey Center states, encourages a commitment to pluralism or coexistence with others. This coexistence is fairly widespread and intrinsic to the lives of Gen Z, not something we have to seek out through other means like those in Gen X may have had to do. Another similarity is that Gen Z and Gen X are both heavily criticized by other generations. According to Stephen Katz, Gen Z has been described as lost, unknown, disaffected, cynical, and to some most offensively, slackers. Gen Z has been described as lacking originality, is said to have been overly coddled, and lazy. If you take all these adjectives, they describe Mary pretty well. That is, until she unlocks the love of knowledge via the Dewey Decimal System. Although her path to it is pretty unconventional, Mary's progression into owning her identity and the multiplicity of it is a universal experience. When Mustafa, her crush, teaches her about the myth of Sisyphus, we get to be treated to her trying to describe the story to her friend Leo with all the gumption a New York socialite party girl can. It is a scene that perfectly encapsulates the ethos of the film. You almost get the idea, but you still don't have the full picture, and that's okay. Party Girl tells us that life is the full picture, and we may never fully understand it, but it is totally worth trying. And not only is it worth trying, it's also worth it to wholly express yourself along the way. What Party Girl is most known for are the costumes. She isn't afraid to be colorful, even within the dreary walls of the public library. Throughout the film, she is dressed in designer pieces, ranging from a Vivienne Westwood corset to a coveted Jean Paul Gaultier jacket in her closet, that she eventually sells, to her frank disapproval. However, Mary's style is not desirable just because it is expensive. It is desirable because it feels like a true expression of the character's inner self. Costume designer Michael Clancy set up Mary's wardrobe. It was very character-driven in that sense. It wasn't regimented in the way that other costuming I'd done has been, where it's very strategic or based on a specific color palette. We just threw things together that seemed to work. We come up with our own versions of those high-fashion looks we couldn't afford and combined them with vintage clothes or something we bought from Century 21. That's how the film was costumed. We had no money. Further on the costumes, Daisy von Struthers-Mayer said, "What I loved about what Michael did, and I think the reason the clothing feels so timeless, is that it was created all around the character, and then with pieces that were from Parker's own wardrobe. Her flair for putting it together in these outrageous combinations was very much its own creation." In a world where TikTok, Instagram, and Pinterest are rotating through fashion trends and aesthetics at an exhaustive pace, I think Gen Z is attracted to Mary's style because it is devoid of saturation of outside influence. When Mary shows up on the screen in a wonderful outfit, it doesn't feel contrived for an audience to respond to it, unlike many outfits young people create today. She dresses for herself. This also makes her commitment to fashion as a librarian so refreshing. As someone who regards themselves as a true individual, Mary does not shrink herself in order to conform to what a librarian is supposed to look like. Compared to today, where looking like a librarian is its own online fashion niche. You office siren queen. Looking back on Party Girl, it's interesting to think about how if Mary were a young person in 2025 with a great fashion sense and active social life, she would no doubt in my mind be an influencer today. Although Daisy von Struthers-Mayer is less sure of this. In an interview with Vogue, she said, "I'd love to see what Mary would have done with social media. Would she have become a billionaire? I don't know." Regardless, there is something undoubtedly nostalgic about seeing someone be an it girl without having to construct the identity so forcefully through an online platform. Mary has a natural cool, a genuine zest for life that cannot be faked for likes and views. Although Gen Z does not have the experience of a life that is like this, it doesn't mean we can't admire it or even crave it for ourselves. As Ashley Rapina writes for New Wave magazine, it is safe to say that nostalgia serves as a unique avenue for comprehending the past, bringing about a renewed and conscious recognition that we may not have been able to appreciate fully during the time, quite simply due to age. Party Girl is an art house romp that serves as both a testament to the life and times of Gen X, as well as a timeless love letter to growing up. Gen Z has grasped onto this letter and is holding it tight to our chests. It is a film that fulfills our deepest desires, to figure ourselves out and to be less alone. Earlier this year, Katie Driscoll wrote for A Rabbit's Foot that, despite being made 30 years ago, the film still resonates with the universal trappings of early adulthood. The sparsely decorated apartment, the laser focus on fun, sucking at romance, fooling around with your roommate, hating your job, losing your job, feeling lost, and so on. Party Girl still captures the essence of what being young and confused in your 20s feels like. I couldn't have said it better myself. Party Girl is the ultimate film about being in your 20s. Its staying power and cultural resurgence has proved this to be true. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to take a nice, powerful, mind-altering substance, preferably one that'll make my unborn children grow gills. Thank you for watching this video. I truly do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more content. I make video essays on film every month, so if you're interested, make sure to stick around for more content. I will see you soon. Bye.